Hey guys, it's Ben with design3 here, and I'm talking to Jesse Schell, who is CEO of Schell Games and also is a teacher at Carnegie Mellon. How are you doing today, Jesse?
Doing great.
All right. So, first question, how did you first get started playing video games, and what are some of your all-time favorite games?
Got it, playing video games. So I'm an old man, so for me, we called it TV tennis back in the day. TV tennis was like the poor man's version of Pong. Those were the first real video games I played, and then of course arcade games were something I'd started playing even from, I don't know, I remember being 5, 6 years old playing those sorts of things. And which, I'm the right age that I got to see the whole rise of the personal computer and the whole rise of all those things. And so I started programming video games when I was about 12 years old.
Okay, so how did you kind of get started programming video games at that age?
Well, back then, there was no internets. If you had a computer, you either had to buy software, which was really expensive, steal software, and you had to know the right people, or make your own software. And making your own software was what a lot of us did. That was back in the day when there were monthly magazines with millions of subscribers that would give code that you would type in order to have programs. It was like a totally normal thing to do. And so I'd started programming back then just because I could.
Yeah. So how did you kind of learn the skills to start doing some of that programming?
Just a little bit here and there, little. Back then you had to learn it from little booklets, and all that. And I ended up taking some classes in school when I got a little older, but a lot of it was just sort of trial and error, borrowing a book from the library, all that kind of thing.
And how did you kind of break into the industry? What was your first job?
Yeah, right. So it wasn't obvious to me that a career in video games was even a reality, that did not really occur to me until I was much older. I'd always been interested in entertainment. In fact, I'd been a professional juggler for a while. I was touring with circus groups and things. But I'd gone to college for computer science, specifically studying artificial intelligence. Then I started getting into virtual reality in graduate school. And my first real game industry job after I used to work at Bell Labs, I worked at IBM for a bit, was I got a job at the Disney virtual reality studio as a programmer. And it was great because I could take what I'd learned from circus, all that sort of performing stuff and amusement park stuff, and combine it with computer science and virtual reality stuff I knew to put it all together. And that was a big deal for me.
Can you tell us about the current project you're working on?
Right, so our studio, we have about 65 people, and we're an independent studio. So we end up working on a lot of projects. We're honestly working on about a dozen projects at a time. Our biggest one right now is the Mechatars, kind of mechanical avatars. We teamed up with a robotics company called Bossa Nova Robotics, and the idea is they're toy robots. We have remote control, and you can run them around on the floor, but then they can also battle each other. And they remember the outcomes of the battles, so you plug them in with USB to the computer, you can upload that. There's a whole online world, so you can play adventures with your robot online, and you get experience points from the living room uploaded into here, but now online you get to unlock new powers, and then you can download those back into your robot, new sound effects, new attacks, so that when you go back out on the playground or whatever, you have new powers. That's one of them, but man, we have about a dozen different things going on.
Great. It makes me wish that was around when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So what is a typical day of work for you like?
Right, so my role at the company, so I'm CEO, and we have so many projects going on. I can't usually have my fingers too deep in any of them because I don't have time to do it right. So we have each project has a director, has a producer. I serve in what we call kind of executive producer capacity, which really fundamentally means I touch base with all the projects and kind of give my 2 cents, but it's up to the director to decide ultimately what to do. Right, so I do a lot of kind of guiding and steering based on sort of experience and what I'm aware of, and then I do a lot of trying to get new projects for the studio, because we're not a studio that has investors. It's not like someone said, "Here's $10 million, go do great things." We're a studio that works off of contract work, and we try and make that profitable, and then we use the profits to make our own games. So a lot of what I do ends up being trying to meet with potential clients, potential publishers, and get new projects started at the studio.
How do you start a new game, kind of the planning, designing phase?
Well, it all depends. Different games start differently. Sometimes someone comes to us and says, "We need a game like this," and then we talk to them about, well, here's how we could get started with that. And you've got to have some kind of vision of like, here's what this probably should be, and why is it a good idea? Why should it be this big or that big, or because you got to figure out how much is this going to cost you in order to get this built, and you have to figure out the business model. You have to figure out, well, do we have the right people to work on this? Can we get it done? How long is it really going to take? So there's a lot of different pieces that all kind of have to come together. Your publisher or client has to like it, the team has to feel they can do it, everybody has to feel like this is a good idea, that this is actually going to be something that's got a shot at making money in the right way. It's a lot of pieces at once.
Can you tell us a little bit about the software you guys are using when you're building your games?
Sure. So we've been at it for about 8 years, and that's like, I don't know, 150 console cycles? I have no idea. Anyway, things change fast, in this industry. When we got started, there were no smartphones, there were no tablets, there was no Unity, none of those things. So we've done a few different things over the years. Lately, we're very focused on Unity, because we're big believers in 3D on the web, and we're big believers in multi-platform experiences, and lately Unity's been pretty good for that. But we also do a lot of stuff with Flash, because there's a lot of times when Flash is just the right thing as kind of a go-to platform. Historically, we've done stuff with Panda 3D, which was sort of the only multi-platform game engine the only sort of it's actually the only open source multi-platform game engine. So we'd historically done a lot with that, but lately we've been developing more of our own tools and platforms. So like we have an engine called the Beanstalk engine, which is for iOS, so for tablet and phone. So it's a lot of different platforms we do.
Is there any common design challenges that you've run into through the course of building your games?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different challenges.
Maybe a top one.
Yeah, I mean, lately, the biggest challenge everyone has is figuring out what is the right way to get people to pay for your games. This used to be a challenge we didn't worry about very much. Games either cost $20, $30, or $60, and you just had to figure out which kind you were making, and that's what you would do. Now it's like, should I do it free to play? And should I give you a free gun and sell you the bullets, or what am I doing? And there's so many ways you can do it. And this, even as something as simple as we just made a puzzle game called Inner Cube. And in the old days, it'd be like, yeah, okay, this is a puzzle game. It's simple. It's cost $20, and there you go. But now it's like, well, no, we want to put it out there. And 2 years ago, what you would have done is you'd say, okay, I'm going to put this on the App Store, and it's going to be like a $5 game, or I'll put it on Steam, and it'll be an $8 game. But now, it's like, no, that's not how you do it anymore, stupid. You give it away for free, and you have some number of levels, and then you start selling the levels in packages. But like, how many levels should be in a pack, and how much should I charge, and really, is this the right thing to do? So more and more, that's I think the toughest design challenge everybody has lately, that interaction between cost and how do I sell this, and like, what am I making?
Right, so kind of monetization basically.
Yeah, figuring monetization, I think, is the biggest challenge.
Can you tell us how many people are in your team and what the workflow is like between them?
Yeah, so we have 65 people on our team. Most of them are in Pittsburgh, so we've got 55 people in Pittsburgh. We've got a team of 5 in Austin, Texas, and then we have, I think, 5 people who are independent, sort of scattered hither and yon around the country. And workflow-wise, we break everything into projects, right? So which is tricky, right? Being able to do, 65 people doing about a dozen projects at a time. Some of those are big, some of them are really small. And a lot of it that's key for us is this concept of a producer and a director assigned to each project. Some producers are producing multiple projects. Usually a director is only one per project. And that's fundamentally how we organize it. You get into a lot of questions about what's the best way to have people work, etc. We tend to use the agile process for sort of day-to-day management of projects. But beyond that, there's a million details.
Yeah, you kind of just touched on it, but how do you manage your time and stay on track, make sure everybody's doing what they need to be doing?
Right, and for us the key is using agile process, and different people interpret that in different ways, but the key aspects as we see it are breaking things into sprints so that you have a firm deadline every 3 weeks is the time frame we use. You set concrete deliverable deadlines for the whole team that happen every 3 weeks. Not like, oh, here we'll deliver it 6 months from now. No, really, what's going to be running 3 weeks from now. Then you combine that with daily Scrum meetings where the whole team is together face-to-face for like a 10-minute meeting about here's what I did yesterday, here's what I plan to do today, here's the problems I'm having. And so this way that you can kind of see moment to moment what's going wrong. Because one of the biggest problems with games is they often end up being late, right? And Fred Brooks, who's one of the fathers of computer science, people would ask him, how does a software project end up being a year and a half late? And he said it's easy, one day at a time. That's exactly how it happens. And so it's important to have systems where you're managing and steering it one day at a time so that you can deal with problems as soon as they happen.
How do you go about playtesting your games?
There's a lot of different methods that we use. Playtesting is really important. Figuring out where to put it in the cycle is a big question. One of the things that we've done is over the years we've developed a mailing list of locals who like to playtest games. We have maybe about 1,000+ people on this mailing list. And when we have something we want to test, we send out an email saying, look, we need boys ages 7 to 12, or we need adults 18+ to test this game. And we do it right in the house most of the time, right in the studio most of the time. Other times we use external focus groups. For some things you can't play test until you have 1,000 people playing, and then you have to kind of do a beta launch and manage that. So there's different types of play tests for different types of games.
Can you talk a little bit about how you distribute and publish your games?
Yeah, so that's all over the place too. Sometimes we work with existing publishers making games for systems that they have, because we mostly do online work. We don't do a lot of console or traditional retail development. So some of them we work with partners, and the partners handle a lot of the marketing and distribution concepts. But lately we're doing more and more on our own, and it's a challenge because with each game you have to figure out what's the right way to get people to know about it. And the way you do that with a web game is really different than the way you do it with a Facebook game, which is really different than how you do it with a smartphone game. And so we're experimenting and trying to figure each of those out. As a relatively small studio, most of our independent games, we have to use kind of guerrilla marketing techniques. And so we use a lot of experimental marketing. One project we're going to do now, we're going to launch with a Kickstarter in order to get it going and draw some attention to it.
So that kind of goes right nicely into my next question. How do you handle marketing and promotion of the games?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of case by case. We have some projects where we work with external marketing firms. We set aside enough budget that we can work with a marketing firm who can kind of get aggressive, help develop media and materials. The Mechatars project I mentioned, television commercials have been created for that. Obviously, you're in a whole different budget range than like doing little social media events. So we're doing a lot of experimenting in this regard. It's a mix of sort of press releases, internet advertising, TV advertising, and various sort of social network things. A lot of the things we're doing lately, we're experimenting with ways to do contests to get people involved, to kind of boost the virality of your games.
In your opinion, how important is the community of players that kind of forms around a new game once it's released?
It depends on the game. I mean, if you can get a community of players who's enthusiastic about the game, some games are more well suited to that than others, right? Angry Birds is very popular, but is it because of the Angry Birds community? I'm not so sure about that. That's not necessarily a game that's really focused on that. But you look at something like Minecraft, that's a thing all about the community, right? So a lot of it depends on the nature of the game, and you have to sort of figure out different games have different types of communities, different communities have different needs, different communities have different powers, and you have to foster them each individually.
What advice would you give to people who want to get started in video game development themselves?
They should start making video games. It used to be you had all kinds of excuses not to get started. Oh, I can't afford a dev kit, or I don't know how I'd learn how to do it. And you don't have any of those excuses. They're all gone. All the information about how to do it is right there on the internet, right? Anybody can download Unity and get started. Anybody can download Game Salad and just get started with a million examples that are out there and a million free tutorials that are out there where you can just get started doing it. So quit whining. That'd be my advice. Just go and do it.
Okay, that brings me to my final question. Might kind of put you on the spot here, but if you had to sum up video game design and development in just one word, what would that one word be?
That word would be awesomeness. Yeah, that's my word.
That's excellent. All right, Jesse, thanks a lot.
Sure.
We appreciate it.